Do you want a sword, Thorfinn? A sword is a tool meant to kill. Why do you need it? Whose life do you intend to take?
Enemies.
Your enemies? Who are they?
Well, bad guys like Halfdan.
Listen to me, my son. You don't have enemies. The truth is that nobody has them. Nobody in this entire world deserves to get hurt.
From the moment we are born, we are a byproduct of our environment, our experiences, how we were raised, and who we associate ourselves with. These are things we've always been told, and we were always told to consider carefully when walking whatever paths in life we take. It's why society tells us to be careful when making these choices. But what if society tells you to make certain choices that you later deem as a threat to your family, a threat to your philosophy, a threat to your very existence, or perhaps other people's existence? What if you found out there's a land out there that will allow you to escape this perpetual cycle of violence, to escape what society has deemed as acceptable? This is the story of Vinland Saga. It's the story of a boy named Thorfinn Karlsefni, who goes on a journey that starts as a journey for revenge, which later turns into a journey of self-reflection and wanting to find peace, internally and externally. It has strong messages about fatherhood, stoicism, peace, forgiveness, self-improvement, atonement, and breaking the cycle of hatred and violence. Its core messaging and the journey that Thorfinn goes on has forever changed my outlook on life. It made me want to be more stoic and kind. It made me want to be the best version of myself, where no matter what happens, I don't let it affect me. I want to be able to go on in life without viewing others as my enemies, because no one in this world deserves to be hurt. Vinland Saga made me connect with people out there in the world, creating some of my most cherished friendships. This is the impact Makoto Yukimura's series Vinland Saga has had on me. Vinland Saga, the manga created by Makoto Yukimura, started serialization on April 27th, 2005, and has been in serialization for 20 years now, as it approaches its end. I first came across this series in 2020 at the height of COVID, through the anime produced by Studio Wit. The first season is quite an action-packed and emotional season that acts as a prologue for what is to come. We meet characters that we love from the very first time we are introduced to them, such as Thors, the father of Thorfinn. We also meet characters that we grow to love over the course of the series, such as Thorfinn himself, Askeladd, Born, Hild, and Einar. This series is quite profound for me and many others, for it symbolizes hope, kindness, and self-improvement. It is the theme of wanting to break a cycle that is profoundly human. We all experience life where perhaps there's been a cycle of some kind, and it was up to us to break that cycle for the greater good. It's a common narrative piece that showcases growth for a character or person. And in the case of Vinland Saga, the character of Thorfinn, we see through him his desire to break away from traditional Viking life, perpetual cycle of violence and conquering by any means necessary, to be quite fascinating. This is because Makoto Yukimura wanted to showcase a story about pacifism in a backdrop that is quite overtly violent, which is why he chose the Viking era to showcase this message of themes of life, love, and death in the background. As these three particular ideas are themes Yukimura has expressed great interest in portraying in his works, just as he did in his previous serialized work, Planetes. In his own words, the themes are portrayed more easily given the era and setting he chose for Vinland Saga. For me, Vinland Saga tells one of the most human stories that I have had the pleasure of watching and ultimately reading. There are very few stories that I can say have had an interesting direction when it comes to telling a story in the Viking era. How often do you find a story taking place when Vikings were one of the most feared people on land and sea, where a Viking who grew up in a cycle of violence and slavery wanted to break away from it all and start life in a land anew? I can say there aren't any stories like it at all. Vinland Saga is as rich as it is unique. Seeing Thorfinn grow from a child and teen who was filled with rage and despair to a stoic and kind individual who puts lives ahead of all else is nothing more than rewarding. Yukimura knows how to write deep and complex characters to the T. Take, for instance, Askeladd. When we are first introduced to this character, we see that he is a conniving, callous individual, calculates risk when taking on enemies on the battlefield. He is manipulative, but also charismatic. We see how he can have so many followers at his beck and call. We understand that there is more to him than meets the eye. It's such a fascinating experience to have to go from despising a character to loving him. It definitely isn't an easy feat to do, but Yukimura somehow did it. And despite the fact that Askeladd was only prominent in a small section of the story, his impact can still be felt to the most recent chapters in the manga. Askeladd, the man who killed Thorfinn's father, over several years raises the boy, bestowing him with wisdom, lecturing him about history, subtly telling him what he is after. We see Askeladd respect Thorfinn as the son of Thor's, man whom he acknowledged as the winner of a duel between them. And in critical moments, Askeladd trusts Thorfinn. We see how, at the end of the prologue, in the combination of everything thus far, Thorfinn had come to respect and even see Askeladd as a father figure, whether he knew it or not. The idea of fatherhood had indirectly played a huge part in the series, as claimed by Yukimura-sensei. It wasn't originally meant to play a part in the story, but once Yukimura-sensei noticed what had happened, he decided to run with it. The relationship between fathers and sons is something that made me have a bit of an introspective on what type of father I want to be. Thorfinn in his story has had great father figures, contributing to the man he is near at the end of the story. Thor's raised him in his childhood, bestowing on him his philosophy of a true warrior, and how no one in this world deserves to be hurt. Askeladd raised Thorfinn throughout his teenage years, telling him about history, making attempts at Thorfinn to realize what he ought to walk the same path as Thor's. Instead of trying to walk the path of revenge, it's to live a fruitful life of a true warrior, much like Thor's the Troll of Gjom. I believe he does this out of guilt for killing the one man whom he said, in his own words, earned his respect. Thor's alone was worth 100 men's lives. Then Askeladd had a major role post-mortem in having Thorfinn realize that he has to accept what he had done in his past, that there is no choice in that Thorfinn had to carry the souls of those he had slain as a Viking, and make it up to them to atone for his actions. Askeladd tells Thorfinn he will have to carry this weight with him for the rest of his life. Best that he can do is find a place for all the souls to rest. Then there is
Leif Erikson,
who raised Thorfinn through his stories of traveling during Thorfinn's childhood, and taught him how to sail and travel on his own journey to Vinland and the Baltic Sea during his young adult years, even telling Thorfinn his own experience coexisting with the natives of Vinland. Each father figure of Thorfinn's left him with knowledge and wisdom, shaping Thorfinn to be the man that he currently is at this point in the manga. This brings me to wanting to share a personal experience. I had the opportunity to attend a Q&A session and book signing of Makoto Yukimura's. It was there that I was able to share how much the series meant to me, and how it made me want to be better as well, as view fatherhood differently than before. I mentioned to him how I wish to be a great father to my future children, as with the concept of fatherhood being a central theme in the series unintentionally, made me want to be able to set a good example for my future children in terms of how I carry myself, being kind and stoic in the face of hardship, and to have a high sense of morality and respect for my ideals as well as those whom I may not agree with, to live a life that I could be proud of sharing with my future children. To which, through his translator, Yukimura-sensei said to not worry, as he himself doesn't know if he is a good father, but it's ultimately important to try our best. It was an honor and a privilege to meet the man who created one of my favorite manga, and through seeing him in person, I got to better understand what kind of person he is. He is a good-natured and really down-to-earth guy who knows how to make a few jokes and is surprisingly pretty funny. Vinland Saga also allowed me to get close to people in countries that are not my own. I had the amazing opportunity to connect with people all around the world through the online space, and one of those people was a huge fan of anime. We would send each other memes and videos and talk about series that we were watching and reading, and recommending each other things to take a look at. One of the series I recommended to them was Vinland Saga. They go around to watching it just as the second season dropped from Studio Mappa. It was then that our conversation regarding the series spurred us towards reading the manga. In the summer of 2023, shortly after we caught up to the most recent chapter of the manga, my friend exclaimed gratitude for being introduced to the series and how important it became to them. Shortly after I found out on the Vinland Saga subreddit that Yukimura was attending a Q&A and book signing event for a book festival in my city, it was there that I invited some friends to go with me, one being a fan of the series and the other just to take along and do me a favor, as anime isn't their thing. It presented me with the opportunity to sign up for the book signing event and get a signature from Yukimura-sensei for my international friend. We attended the Q&A and book signing event in September and got signatures from Yukimura-sensei. Then I shared the news with my friend and showed a picture of Yukimura's signature and him writing my friend's name. At first they didn't realize and mentioned how lucky I was and that they wished they had gotten the opportunity to meet him. It was funny seeing their reaction and not realizing what I sent in terms of the picture. They thought the signature had my name when it was theirs. I had to point it out. Seeing the reaction after realizing what had happened became one of the highlights of my life thus far. Seeing your friends get excited about what they love and about something you gave them is one of the greatest feelings you can have. Your serotonin levels become an all-time high through watching their reaction. The plan was to give the signed Volume 8 of the English civilization of the Vinland Saga manga to them in person the next time they came to Canada, as they have some family here. But unfortunately, after a few months, it was revealed they won't be able to come by anytime soon. So we opted to ship it. Against all feelings of unease, as for me at least, I was worried if the package would get lost and or damaged. But fortunately, in the summer of 2024, the package arrived to my friend's home unscathed and without being lost. I requested my friend to record the reaction to unboxing it, as again, one of the best feelings you can have is seeing your friend's reaction to something you gave them. Watching that recording and seeing them unbox the package with all of its contents in addition to the signed manga volume, and seeing their reaction became one of my greatest highlights of the year and my life thus far. They mentioned how I didn't need to do what I did, and that while unboxing the contents and seeing everything in person caused them to start shaking in excitement as well as shed tears of happiness. They mentioned how they needed to repay me, but in all honesty, I feel like my friendship with them is enough of a repayment. This whole experience and us talking about our love for Vinland Saga made us closer and helped to mold one of my most cherished, important, and profound friendships that I had the pleasure of partaking in, and I wouldn't dream of trading it away for anything in this world and the next. Vinland Saga allowed me to revolutionize my philosophy about life and how I want to carry myself. It made me want to be my better self, to be the best version of myself, and has allowed for me to look at fatherhood differently than I had before, coupled with the fact that it has allowed for me to connect with people hundreds of miles and or kilometers away. Despite the distance, these friendships have become something important for me, and I think that is beautiful. When Vinland Saga ultimately ends, it will be a sad moment for me personally, but I will always be grateful for having been exposed to such a great series, and it has transformed many aspects of my life. And so with that said, thank you, Vinland Saga, and thank you, Makoto Yukimura Sensei, for bringing this series into existence. For I am truly, truly, and forever grateful for having been again exposed to the series and partaking in weekly discussions about it and enjoying the anime and manga as a whole. Again, thank you for everything.